Hello, Dark Reader, and welcome to the Dark Side of the Library podcast. My name is Katie, and today we're going to be talking about Malice House by Megan Shepherd. I was looking for all of the books for 2022 that were ranked pretty high, like the top horror books for 2022, and Malice House tended to be towards the top 10, and I realized that I hadn't picked it up yet. It was published in October of this year, and it's been crazy this holiday season ever since Halloween. So, I finally decided, you know what? I'm going to read it right before the holidays. By the way, happy Yule or happy Christmas or happy holidays to everybody. I hope everybody has a really awesome holiday weekend. And if there are any books that you are looking for yourself or for your loved ones, if you're looking for something to keep you company over this spooky holiday season, make sure to check out our show notes at darksideofthelibrary.com, and you'll find a lot of cool books over there. All right, so Malice House. Let's talk about the summary of the book first. Here's what the publisher wrote. Of all the things aspiring artist Haven Marbury expected to find while clearing out her late father's remote seaside house, bedtime stories for monsters was not on that list. This secret, hidden manuscript is disturbingly different from his Pulitzer-winning prize works. Its interweaving short stories crawl with horrific monsters and enigmatic humans that exist somewhere in between this world and the next. The stories unsettle, but also entice Haven, practically compelling her to illustrate them while she stays in the house that her father warned her was haunted. Clearly, this was just dementia whispering in his ear. Reeling from a failed marriage, Haven hopes an illustrated bedtime stories can be the lucrative posthumous father-daughter collaboration she desperately needs to jumpstart her art career. However, everyone in the nearby vacation town wants a piece of the manuscript. Her father's obsessive literary salon members, the ink drinkers, her mysterious yet charming neighbor who has a tendency towards 3 a.m. bonfires, a young barista with a literary forgery business, and, of course, whoever keeps trying to break into her house. But when a monstrous creature appears under Haven's bed right as grisly deaths are reported in the nearby woods, she must race to uncover dark, otherworldly family secrets, completely rewriting everything she knew about herself in the process. Sounds interesting, right? So here's a little bit about Megan Shepherd. So she is a New York Times bestselling author, a Carnegie Medal nominated author. She grew up in her family's independent bookstore in the Blue Ridge Mountains, so obviously this is almost her calling. She is the author of many acclaimed middle grade and YA novels, and she put Malice House underneath her YA novels. I'm not sure if that was an accident on her bio, but just a little tidbit, this does read a little bit like a YA book, so this doesn't surprise me. She's also written the Madman's Daughter series, the Cage series, The Secret Horses of Briar Hill, etc. She lives and writes on a haunted 125-year-old farm outside Asheville, North Carolina. I kind of want to see what this place looks like. I don't know how it's haunted, so that's really cool. All right, let's talk about my review of this story. So I'm going to give it about a 2.52 for me, which was a bit of a shocker. All of the themes presented in this book were things I was really looking forward to. I haven't given a lot of haunted house books a chance this year, so this was one of my first ones that I did, and I was really pumped about it. There were monsters in here. It's a little conspiracy theory, small town, etc. So it had all of these elements I was looking for, but it just did not hit the mark for me. Don't let this deter you, though. As I go through this review, this is not to shame anybody for hating the book or loving the book. These are just my perspectives on how I felt about the story. Every piece of art, literature, etc. hits everybody differently. So for this one, it just did not get it for me, unfortunately, which I was really bummed about. I'm going to go through things that I enjoyed, things that I didn't like. So if you are wanting to read Malice House, if this has been on your TBR, go ahead, give it a read before you listen through the rest of this podcast, and come back to this podcast and let me know what you think of this book yourself, either on our comment section, in our show notes on darksideofthelibrary.com, or you can join us on all of our socials at Dark Side of the Library. Okay, so let's start with the pros. Here are things that I did enjoy. This one is kind of a wishy-washy enjoy, but I like things set in the Pacific Northwest. More specifically, I like things near my house, so near Seattle. I do have a few issues here, and this is only from a research perspective. So it says, quote, Malice House is situated in a steep seaside forest of Lundy Bay off the coast of Seattle. Of course, I decided, wow, where is this steep seaside forest? And where is this tiny little town that's actually close to Seattle? Maybe I can get the best of all of the worlds here. Well, as far as I can tell, Lundy Bay does not exist. And I was really bummed out. And maybe this is just a personal problem that I have. I know plenty of books have real places mixed with fantasy places. I guess I was just disappointed because why not take an actual town in the Pacific Northwest that gives you all the things that you need? I mean, Twilight did it. You've got Forks. But anyway, so why not take an actual place and, use that as your setting versus let's refer to Seattle. And I'm not really sure why Seattle is even referenced. Create a fictional place that's all dreary and gray. Is that why you picked the place? Anyway, so either create a fantasy place or not. That was just a personal irk for me, but, I was really excited that, hey, this could be a real place really close to me. Another thing that I actually did enjoy, this is the true pro of this entire story, is each intro to each chapter is called Bedtime Stories for Monsters. So this, like you heard in the summary, that is the unpublished manuscript that Haven's father created. Each intro of the chapter has a little blurb, so it might feature a specific monster, parts of a story of a monster, and they're written really well, and they're very creepy and eerie, and honestly, I can see why Haven was inspired to start drawing any of these creepy critters or people or whatever, because I'm inspired as well. They are sinister and looming, and they're just strange, and I like them all. They're kind of grounded in a lot of fairy tales that we see or have seen all throughout human history. It's just great. Another thing I did enjoy was actually the introduction of the story. It starts out very strong. I was really excited, and I felt like it jumped right into we've got the creepy mansion or Malice House, the interesting, weird, gray, dreary setting. We have Haven, who seems kind of ready to go. It was a great start, and it felt like it could be really scary. It just didn't ever hit that mark for me. It never truly felt terrifying or unsettling. So let me get into a bit of the book, and these might actually be spoilers. So again, if you want to read Malice House, make sure to do that before you continue forward on this podcast episode. I'm going to try really hard not to spoil some bigger parts, but there are things that I might spoil. Okay, we're going to begin with our protagonist, Haven. Unfortunately, Haven is not my favorite protagonist, and this is something I'm seeing a lot in books. It's kind of a shortcoming where you have these characters that are really bland, and I don't know if the intention is that it's so that you as the reader can immerse yourself in the story and be the main protagonist, but I think that just didn't work here. Haven is just too much of a dichotomy. She does one thing or says one thing and does the opposite or acts the opposite, and it just didn't really work. She also just lacks a lot of substance. She is just not a very compelling character to read. So a little bit more about Haven. She's an aspiring illustrator. She hasn't sold a thing in her life, but she talks about how she is a established children's book author. That's how she presents herself. One thing that bothered me, and this is kind of a thing for an artist too, and maybe I'm just being a little judgmental here, it's like she's riding the coattails of her father and expects that people, especially the ink drinkers, are going to accept this unpublished manuscript and the illustrations simultaneously because, hey, she's the daughter of this genius author. Hey, look at these illustrations that go alongside with this manuscript. How cool is that? The ink drinkers, honestly, as nice as you possibly can, reject somebody. They reject her drawings. And again, as an artist, of course, this is incredibly devastating. It is one of the worst experiences, but it is something that every artist, author, anybody who is creating something, I'm sure you understand. It's an experience we've all had, and it is devastating. One thing that bothers me too is I think the fact that she goes into the situation thinking, hey, I've got this in the bag, and then she's rejected. It becomes a really deep wound on her that I feel like lasts a really long time. She just cannot get over the fact that they rejected her drawings. So it's interesting. Also, with Haven, there's no shame here, but she literally does drink a lot in the book. I mean, she drinks entire fifths of scotch herself. She actually is probably drinking the majority of the time. And honestly, and I kind of hate to say this, you could say that she might even be hallucinating, or she's kind of in a drunken stupor sometimes with how she sees certain things or hears certain things. The reason why I bring this up is that it dulls down the spook factor, because it's like, well, she's intoxicated. So, is this a real experience, or is she just, drunk? Anyway, Haven is also really dense. Especially because she has this tendency to kind of brag about how, I don't know, she's consumed a lot of horror and she likes to draw dark things and she's just really edgy, I guess. And she kind of has this weird bragging thing going on in the book. But she does everything exactly like the first person who dies in horror movies or books first does. She makes all of those dumb mistakes. I'm going to go out in the scary, creepy forest where I know there's monsters out all by myself. I'm not going to have any help whatsoever, even though it's offered to me. There's just a lot of that going on, and it's really bad. Another thing, Haven is running away from her boyfriend husband, Baker. He's mentioned many times, especially when there's bits of comparisons with her mysterious neighbor, Rafe, who she starts to have established feelings for very early on, almost right off the bat. And there is an actual reason for that, granted. Fine, I'll let that go. But it was just a little too much here. She also, Haven, gains a friend in someone named Kylie, who I feel like is almost an entirely red herring character. The whole thing here, which I will not spoil, is random and a little silly. The twists involving Kylie and the motivation here is just non-consequential. As you can tell, there are a lot of characters in this story, and I haven't even gone through half of them, and many of them are kind of unnotable, and it's not because there's so many characters. I think it's honestly just there's not enough depth. I have honestly forgotten a few people's names, and I actually finished the book 3 days ago. I only know one of the ink drinkers' names now. Yeah, I don't like that. I want to be able to have memorable characters. And another thing too, this should be really important, remembering a lot of these people, because there are actually people dying everywhere in this very tiny town. People are dropping like flies. And you would think that this would be a very serious, scary thing, especially the fact that it started happening when Haven comes to town. It's almost like everything gets swept under the rug. So it doesn't really have a lot of impact on you. It's like, oh yeah, somebody died. It's like we're supposed to take at face value what the feeling of a bunch of people dying is supposed to feel like, rather than having the description given to us. How is Haven feeling? How is the town feeling? What's the atmosphere like? It just didn't really feel like it was that big of a deal. But seriously, I don't think I've had in a novel that many people die in such a short period of time. Ultimately, here's the actual issue with Malice House, and this is how I'm not going to share any spoilers. There's a lot of plot holes throughout this entire story. And the thing that I feel like happened with this story is that we have plot hole, plot hole, plot hole, and then a very thin band-aid to try to cover up any of these plot holes, like, oh, Haven isn't associated with this person, and it's because of this random twist. But when you actually sit down and think about it for a second, a lot of those band-aids end up being more plot holes. So the story isn't woven beautifully together. There are a lot of frays, empty spots, things that don't necessarily make sense, characters that are, again, they don't really motivate the story. They just kind of feel like they're there as a band-aid, or as a, here's the solution to why she's doing this thing or why she does that thing. Here's what I would have enjoyed. I actually do enjoy the premise. This is, the foundation was solid. So it is a paint by numbers, stories coming to life and the problem are the twists. That is the problem. And there's too many. There's too many things going on. There's too much background noise. It really should have just stuck in its lane and had a few extra twists and really embraced those creepy stories, the bedtime stories for monsters that Haven's father wrote. If that was focused on more and amplified, and even if it was just a straight up stories coming to life thing, that would have made for a way creepier book, in my opinion. And that's just me. So I think there is a great foundation here. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. I just think it just did not hit the mark because trying to be a little too off kilter. And I think that's kind of the problem that I'm seeing with a lot of novels is they don't want to do the paint by numbers or follow certain storytelling techniques. They want to do something different. And I totally understand. But I think rather than making a roller coaster of a story like, ooh, look at that. Oh my God, I didn't expect this. It's all about those foundations, the characters who make the story, the scene, the area, the people, the reactions. That's what makes a great, awesome story. Plenty of people, Poe, Shelley, all of those classics, they pull from fairly generic storylines. Just, here's a haunted house. Bloop, we're gonna do some generic haunted house stuff. Ghosts. Yeah, we've seen ghosts forever. But the reason why they're classics is because they just really lay into it and they create really compelling, fun characters, atmosphere, etc. It's not about those twists and turns and jump scares necessarily. This is not, again, to deter you from not reading the book. Go ahead and read the book. But honestly, what we really would love for you guys to do over on Dark Side of the Library is to talk with us. We want to create a community of people that also love reading dark, creepy books. Go ahead and read Malice House by Megan Shepherd. I personally give this about a 2-star, 2.5 star. Let us know what you think of the book. That is the most important thing. Let's have a discussion. You know, maybe there's things that I missed. Let us know over on YouTube, on our Instagram channel, and on our show notes at darksideofthelibrary.com. In addition, you can also join us if you do like the dark aesthetic. You can join us on Amazon Live at amazon.com/live/darksideofthelibrary. We do stream a lot. Make sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite listening app and to comment, to subscribe, and to share this podcast with your creepy loved ones. Thanks again for listening to this review/rant by me, Katie. It means a lot to me. I hope you made it to the end. I hope everybody has an amazing holiday weekend. We will see you next week with comic books and graphic novels. And then we'll start off the new year with some new awesome reads. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful holiday.